And welcome back. This is the next continuing um, tutorial on Hearts of Iron 4, and we're going to look at the deployment tab. So we've gotten all the way along across this way, skipping Intelligence 1 for now, which you may or may not have, depending on if you have La Resistance as part of your downloadable content. So for the Recruit tab, let's just open that up. Now, right off the bat, you've got these 5 columns here, and this one you might not have potentially if you don't have La Resistance, but essentially this is just deciding the priorities for equipment and where you're going to send it and what gets what first. So reinforcements, that's basically, to give more equipment to your troops that are below maximum. So if they have you have a unit that needs 60 tanks to be at full, and they only have 58, they're too short. So when you build 2 tanks, reinforcements priority, if this is the highest, would go to this first. So they would essentially be used for that. Now if you wanted to upgrade another existing unit that was already at full, you could actually put this up by putting this on high priority. So those free 2 tanks that you just built, instead of going to reinforce the one that's below capacity, you could actually put them in a second unit instead that's at full capacity but has older tanks in it, and this would be replacing those older tanks. And then those older tanks would then be used to reinforce the other unit, because this was a higher priority. For supply trucks, this is basically what you're going to do with your trucks. If you want them to be on supply, you can have the trucks be built first for that, and then they'll go into that ahead of going into reinforcing motorized or armor division units. Operations, this has to do with your spy operations. Generally speaking, you can keep most of these at this level, at the center. The only one I would say otherwise is garrisons. So as we went back over here and went to the occupied territories, it shows you for some of your countries how many of your division. So we've got this Regimento di Cavalleria as our cavalry division for garrison duty. Got it currently set. We'll change that to local police force. Now, as you'll see, we only need 0.32 units of, so basically a third of a division of the cavalry regiment will be dealt with to deal with Eritrea, and we need about a third of a division to deal with these 2 parts of Zara and Istria. And for Rhodes, we need a small amount, and for Libya we need about 2/3 of a division. So we need a few divisions. Now the system will go ahead and automatically handle this all behind the scenes, but when they're doing their things, their equipment runs out, it gets utilized because they're repressing uprisings and things like that, and keeping people under control and arresting dissidents, and sometimes their equipment gets worn out, or people get hurt, and you want to be able to put your resources and stuff into that one first. So I usually suggest high priority for garrisons, just because you want the stuff to go to them first, because you don't want to have to deal with background uprisings if you can help it. And having your equipment and stuff, make sure it goes to those people first, is usually the best way of dealing with that. So just a recommendation right off the bat. First thing you do when you're going through starting a game is go and change garrisons to high priority. Now over on the right hand side, this is the units that your system templates that your system starts with. There are options to decommission them. You can basically hide them, and you can click this box to have them show back up again, and then of course we can recommission them if we want, but this is just a way to hide them. Now the other thing you'll notice is it won't let you delete. You can actually delete these templates if you don't want them anymore, but it won't let you do it if there's a unit that's using it. So for these Divisions di Fanteria, we certainly have some infantry divisions out there that are probably utilizing them. The colonial ones, we definitely have some colonial divisions that are using them. You can see the mountain division, so it's obviously using this mountain template. You can see some armor divisions that are obviously using this armor template, and cavalry using this cavalry. I could delete all the cavalry units that we have, and we would probably still not be able to delete this one because it is set as our garrison template. So this also counts as a slot if it's listed in there. You won't be able to delete it if it's in there. Now, some other things that we'll notice, there are some buttons to edit and to train. Edit, this allows you to go into the template and make changes to it. So, you know, if you want to go ahead and change this division, you can change its priority. You can set it as a reserve division, which means that its equipment will go to it last. It's got the default. You can even set it as an elite unit, which means the equipment will go to it first before anything else. So out of all the other units, they'll do that. You can go ahead and copy these divisions by duplicating them as well. So if you wanted to, let's say, group your individual units in ways for having equipment being put to certain ones first, you could actually go ahead and create a copy of Division d'Infanterie and then in parentheses put elite, and then save that copy template with the elite, and then your troops that are fighting along a front somewhere that are of this type, you could then go ahead and assign this template to them instead. So they would get equipment ahead of your others of the Division d'Infanterie elsewhere, because that one would be set on default. So it's a way to differentiate your units. Now all of these things, the basic concept is that each division is composed of up to 5 support companies in this first column, and up to 5 regiments, which are these 5 columns here, and each regiment can have up to 5 battalions. So one of these little slots in these 5 is a battalion. One of the slots over here is a company. Now, this is an infantry company, and if you want to click to change it, it lets you change it to other options. So there's artillery it could be changed to. You could change it to mountaineers. You could change it to anti-air. You could remove it completely. But you'll notice that they cost 5 army experience to make these changes. So if you want to remove it, it costs 5. If you want to change it to artillery, it costs 5. If you want to change it to mountaineers, it costs 5. If you wanted to change it to an armor unit, it costs 35. And the reason it costs 35 is because for a particular division, it's only allowed to have one of these 3 groupings. So in this particular division, it's got infantry battalions only. If I want it to have mobile battalions, I can add them, but you have to pay 25 points before you'll be able to add them. Armored battalions, I can also add them, but it costs 25 points. So mixing and matching and having combined arms, you can do it, but it's really expensive. So it becomes really prohibitive. So typically you're not going to mix your mobile battalions or your armored battalions with your straight infantry. It's just, you just don't do it. I mean, it's possible. Now, we currently have 0, so I could go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to put some armored battalions in here, and I'm going to put a bunch of light tanks, right? And it's telling me it's going to cost me 35 points. Of course, I have none, so I can't actually go ahead and do it currently. So I'll just reset and wipe them out. Reset just sets it back to what it was. If you hit save, it makes that change. Now, sometimes what you'll want to do is you want to have a few, let's say you want to transition one unit type to another, and you don't have enough equipment to do all of your forces. So let's say we have Division d'Infanterie like this, and they've got 6 infantry battalions and engineers, and you want to add armor, or sorry, not armor, artillery. So you go in here and you go into infantry and you add some artillery. And now the only problem is that you've got let's say 15 or 20 of these divisions out there, but you don't have enough, because as you notice, it shows over here, each battalion requires 36, 72 for 2 of them. It's going to add another 36 to go up to 108 if I have 3. So each division is going to need 108 artillery. And if I have 15 divisions, that means I need to have like 1,500 artillery to properly supply them all. And if I don't have that, and I switch all my templates over for all of my units, I'm going to have a problem, because suddenly a bunch of my units aren't going to be fighting near as effectively because they're missing their artillery. So a way around that is you can go ahead, and I'll just reset this one, as I can make a duplicate, and we'll call it copy of, and I'll just change it to improved, and I'll give it that name, and I'll say update. So now we have our Division d'Infanterie, and we have our improved Division d'Infanterie, and you'll notice it can be deleted because of the fact that we don't have any units utilizing it. And I can move it around, I can slide it so that it's up the top, so my infantry ones are all together, grouped nicely, and put this one up above that. There we go, nice. And I can just go ahead and I can make changes to this one, which then leaves this one unchanged. So if I go in here and I go and add the artillery, and it doesn't let me save it obviously because I don't have 5, but let's say I had 5 and I saved it, I could then go ahead and select one of my infantry units. Let's say I have 36 artillery right now, and I want to go ahead and switch it over to one of my units. I can do that. I can just go ahead and pick that particular unit and go find it over here and say, hey, this guy, I want to change him. And I can go and click this button up here, and I can change him from the division that he is currently to this one. And boom. And it says, okay, we need the 183 and we need 9 support equipment, and that's just because he's short a little bit already. And we just say, okay. And now his division template has changed. He's got the improved one. And if we had actually put artillery in that division template and had the artillery available, it would then suddenly send over to this guy. And you could switch them over one at a time when you get enough artillery so that they basically stay at the same fighting level. So it's just something that you can do. A way to kind of do that. Now, if we actually want to build more units, that's what the train button is for. So if I want to build some more Division d'Infanterie, I can do that. Now, when I do that, it goes ahead and it will reduce the amount of available manpower. As you'll notice, when we go up there, it says now we have in training 6,000 or 6.3 thousand or 6,300 people are in training, and we can tell that too. If we look over here, they require 63 manpower for each division. It gives it a name. You can choose where you want to set it. You can set it to build an infant number, so as soon as this one's finished building and gets deployed, it'll then start a new one, and start a new one. If I want, I can actually add units and create multiples at a time. So I can say, okay, I want to create 6 more divisions, and I want to do that 2 times. So I'm going to do 12 in total. It's going to do these 6 first. Once they're done, it's going to do the next 6. I can also set the priority so that equipment, instead of going to reinforcement or going to upgrades or going to garrisons, it will come and supply these new units first. So if you want to sort of rush build something for your new units, you can do that at the expense of the others. So it'll basically make these the priority. I can go, oh, okay, these are going to be my priority. I'm going to have them built first. There's a lot of things you can mouse over to get information about. So like if I go over top of this, it tells me that their equipment, they have no equipment currently. They do have all the manpower that they need. 6,300 of 6,200. They don't have any of their infantry equipment. They don't have any of the support equipment. And you can see that it requires 610 infantry equipment and 30 support equipment. And that's taken straight from the template. 30 support equipment, 610 infantry equipment, and of course requires 6,300 manpower for it. When we make changes to these divisions, if we suddenly go ahead and add more infantry, and add more infantry, and add more infantry, we now need 9,300 manpower for this division instead. And the infantry equipment requirement has gone up from like 600 to 900. Right? The support equipment is still the same because you still only have one engineer company in there, and that's where that 30 is coming from. And when we look, it's still showing 6,300 because I didn't save the changes to that template. Now, one of the things that is interesting that you can do is it also tells you the training level. You can deploy your units once they reach 20% training, although they will be deployed at green level. Essentially we'll come to, I'll sort of explain there's green level, there's regular, or sorry, green level, there's trained, and then regular, and then veteran. There's a bunch of experience levels that your units can have. and essentially they'll start out at green and then work their way up. If you let this train all the way till the end, they'll deploy as trained, which is the default level. Green is actually penalized. You can train them up after they're deployed to get them up to regular level, which gives them a slight bonus. And then once they've fought for a while and gotten more experience, their level actually can go up even higher, and you can have veteran forces and things as well. So if you want to get rid of units, let's say you don't want to deploy them, you can just hit the X and they go away. If you want to get rid of them all at once, you can do that. And you can train some of these other ones instead. Now you'll notice for some ones, like this division, because this has a special forces cap, Italy starts with 5 mountain units, 1 here, 3 there, so there's 4, and then they have a 5th one hiding out down here and each of these units, if we go and look at their template contains 6 mountain battalions, and there's a maximum cap on the number of special forces battalions that you can utilize at a time in your country. So in this particular case, with 5 of each of them, that means that there are 6 times 5, so 30 of them are currently being deployed. When we go back over here and it goes on there, it says you are currently fielding 30, which I just mentioned, and training 0 of our 24 allowed. So we're only allowed 24 actual special forces battalions. Because of that, if we try and do any editing to them, like adding something else, or if we try and create another division, like if we wanted to create paratroopers or marines, we wouldn't be able to. We can create the template, but we can't go ahead and actually create the particular unit. So if I go into Division Designer and you drop down, you can go create empty, and then I can go ahead and say, hey, I want to make some, well, I don't have paratroopers research, but I can make a new mountain unit and just call it, Mountain Battalion, something silly like that. And it'll show that it needs 140 equipment, 120 training time, 1,000 manpower. If I need, and it would cost 5 to do it, to save it, I could save it. I could even set them as an elite force if I wanted. And when I would go and put this out, if I was to attempt to build them, they would also have the training button grayed out because of the fact that we've used over our 24 capacity that we're allowed. Italy is kind of special because it actually starts out with more units that than it's allowed to have in the game. If they lose one, they won't be able to rebuild it because of the fact that so that's kind of an advantage that Italy has, is that they have that extra mountain unit at start. I can go and start creating armor divisions, same thing, and you'll notice that this one, it's got some trucks already on it. It doesn't have any infantry equipment yet. So I mean, we can get rid of that too. And that's basically the gist of how this all works. If you want to create a blank division, you can go in and just go in here and hit create empty, and then make your changes and save it. One thing that sometimes people will do is they'll come in here and they'll just create a single infantry battalion. They'll spend 5, and then what they'll do is they'll take this division, and we'll call it new division or whatever, they'll come over here, they'll grab new division, and they'll spam out like 24 of them. And because it requires so few people, and so few equipment, they're relatively easy to get them out. Now, they're not designed for fighting or anything, but you can put them out there as kind of like placeholders. And then what you can do is, once you're ready to actually, and you've got a surplus of equipment and a surplus of manpower, you can then go find those units and then just change them. Say, okay, I'm going to switch you from the new division to this one, and all of a sudden they'll switch over to fully formed infantry divisions of however much. And if you're suddenly needing to, let's say, get to capacity for meeting a manpower requirement, like say you're playing Germany and you want to do the Anschluss, and you need to have 500,000 manpower in the field, you could field a whole bunch of these little 1 battalion divisions and then just switch them over. And even though they won't have all the equipment the manpower, if you've got it available, will suddenly fill up those units, and you'll meet the manpower requirement because you will have enough people in the field. Yeah, sure, they're not equipped and they're not ready to fight, but you do have 500,000 people in units in the field because you just converted them quickly. So that's a way to meet those requirements really easily. So just something to think about. Other than that, that's pretty much about the gist of it for this particular tab, and I guess we'll do the next video next time. Thanks for watching.